All right, Richard Bruce here. So this is my rig here. As you can see, I've shown it to you guys before, and I got it quite a bit cleaned up, but it's a pretty precarious situation. It really doesn't work. Being homeless doesn't work, and it's pretty miserable. I don't mean to complain because there's a lot of people that are living way worse than me, especially in third world countries. But if you're used to living in a house, this is no accommodations, and it's quite cold and uncomfortable at night, even here in California. So anyway, I just wanted to update you guys on what's been happening with me. I'm going on a year now of being homeless, and I wanted to also update on the slit eye thing, because I know it's quite troubling, and there's a lot of lessons that we had to learn from this. By the way, sorry for that background noise. I am parked in what I call a crap alley right next to the freeway. The air is extraordinarily bad, but no one gives me any crap because I'm not parked right in front of their house, and that's one of the problems with being homeless in the RV, is that people complain when you park in front of their house, and they don't want that, and I've been through that whole thing. So it's tough to explain if you haven't been in that situation. All I can say is, if you haven't been homeless before and you haven't had that experience of not having anywhere to go and just being, it really gets you down sometimes, especially if you're, I was from a fairly affluent home. I grew up on a 11-acre estate in Calabasas, which is a fairly nice area, and we had tennis courts and swimming pools and everything, and so I was used to nice things. And to be homeless now, and especially after all these years, I mean, I've been homeless on and off for 25 years, it's pretty nasty. And now I'm getting old, and my health is failing me, and it's pretty nasty. And plus I'm going bald, and I got my first gray hair, actually this side, I think. Anyway, I don't know if you can see it. But so I want to talk about the slit eye thing, and I don't want to detract from anybody who is suspicious upon seeing that. As I said, I would be too. I do think, however, that there is a possibility, as I said. I mean, demon possession is common. I don't think I'm a reptilian with shape-shifting DNA. I think that, but there is an anomaly with the slit pupil, and it's even on the original file. And I'm going to show you guys that original file. But what's interesting, that I've been thinking about this, and this is why I've kind of taken some time to think about it. Look at I actually have the original file of where I'm sitting there showing the orgonite standing next to my RV, and you really see, even in the original, right out of the camera file, you can see an elongated pupil, not so sharp and slitty as the one that somebody posted, but it's really, you can definitely see that there's an anomalous shape, like an extended shape. And my current working theory is that, first of all, as many of you know, and you can see this on the Tech Quickie channel, there's a good explanation. The camera interpolates itself, simplifies itself, compresses. So even the camera compresses. That means that colors are going to merge, shapes are going to be created that are unnatural. And that's what I realized about the third round debate movie that I made with the elephant in the room's guests, is that it makes for shapes in the eyes that are incredible. I mean, it really looks like slits, and I think that some of the slit eyes thing that we're seeing in people is in fact this camera anomaly, and I definitely became unsure of that. So until I don't think that they're demon possessed actually now, although I'm definitely, as I said, I'm still on the fence about David Icke, but it could all be a filming anomaly. Definitely the web downloaded footage is not as reliable, but one thing I just want to tell you, my theory is that I think that there's one of two main things that has like a physical scientific explanation on this. First of all, the pupil is a light sensing device in the eye, and so it could be that the way light hits your pupil also affects its shape on the camera, may cause a sort of a blurring effect, whereby you get that an elongated shape. However, I would ask, I said, if it's not demon possession or reptilian or something else coming out, why does it have to be up and down slit like that? How come it's not, a horizontal shape? So that's definitely one question you ask. The second theory is that I believe that the eye actually shoots out energy, and this is kind of it's difficult to prove, but there's two examples whereby you can see, and I did a few tests just now, and not sure if they came out or showed anything other than an overactive imagination. But what I think might be happening as well is that when you look at things, like for instance, if you may have noticed this, when you look at a member of the opposite sex, or the same sex as the case may be, but when you look at them with interest, they'll turn around. Like I noticed that when you look at a girl, my dad said this too, when you look at a girl with interest, all of a sudden she'll turn around and look right at you, like she knew exactly where the eyes of interest were. And it's like a little sensor, but what I think is that it's not just like some random psychic thing that has no immediate physical connection. I think that there's an energy that comes out of your eyes and may actually hit the object. And I noticed that with not only with people but with trees. And I just did that test where I was looking up at these trees over here, and just did a quick test to see if if when you look directly at it, it starts blowing more. See, I'm looking at the viewfinder now. And now I'm going to look directly at the tree itself. I didn't notice anything. That time I did, as I looked at it, and these are living beings that I think can feel your energy and your emotional state, and so that's why we should treat trees with respect. Even the Bible says that since Lucifer is fallen, the king of Babylon, Barack Obama, at least that's who I think it is, or maybe the Antichrist is somebody else, but it says that the trees break forth into singing, and it says, since you have fallen, no feller has come up against us. And so that means that trees are living beings, and if you've tested this like I have, it's true. They can actually sense your emotions, because when you look at it, and there's other people who have, I've seen this in other things, I've seen it in movies, where the director would point the camera up at the tree, and you see a child looking up at it. I forget what movie it was, but you see a child looking up at it, and you see it's almost like the wind in the tops of the trees is blowing in reaction to this child looking at it. So I know I'm not the only person who's noticed this. Many people have noticed this, and especially people who are observant and believe that we're living in a vastly more magical and spiritual world than the secular world would have us believe. And that's really important to have an open mind. But I also like to be scientific and have some kind of proof to show. That's why I like, the thing with the reptilians is that this is, so clearly something that, you can really see. I mean, finally something paranormal that we can, all you got to do is to rent some 80s sci-fi movies or, movies where there's less light or distance between the subject and the lens, and boy, these shape-shifting reptilians come out. So that's my theory as far as that goes. If it in fact it is not necessarily, and it could be, demon possession and or possibly latent small amount of reptilian DNA. One of the things that I thought about with all this is that the whole reason I'm interested in the reptilian subject is because I myself am related in some way to the reptilians, and that's probably the case with David Icke. At least that's my thinking about it. But it may be in a way, as some people have pointed out, that whole thing with the reptilian core, the brain, and that's why we all maybe have a little bit of reptilian in us, or we all have a little bit of reptilian DNA in us. But it's all theoretical, and we don't know. That's why I say again, whatever you're showing, it's good to have some kind of proof, some kind of something that shows something unusual. So anyway, that's just the theory I put forward. And I'm going to show you the original file here on my laptop so you can see that elongated pupil from the original right out of the camera file. Okay, so here we are. I'm inside the RV, and I'm going to show you the original file. And let me just first get on the so you can see that it's the original. And so here's the one. You can see this is the right out of the camera, that MVI 1243. That's the actual file, and I'll just double click on that so you can see. Alright everybody, so I made my first piece of organite on the road, and here it is. And okay, so now what I'm going to do is show you in power director here, I've zoomed in and brightened up so that you can see, and this is that same file that you just saw, the original, and just applied a little bit of brightness and contrast to it. If you want to, I can take that off so that you can see, but you can already see, I'm going to go through this frame by frame, you can already see that the pupil it's a little bit abnormally long there. You see it's not perfectly round, it's kind of elongated, and it'll really become more prominent in just a second. And I'll play this so that you can see it in its original speed. But you can already see these little fluctuations of these little dark areas. You see these little these fluctuations that if you were looking for shape-shifting, you would think that might be what that is. And again, you see even now you can see, and look at how long that is now. It's even longer, and look at that now. That looks like a reptilian slit eye. Look at the shape. See, it's got the classic, either it's possibly a feline or a reptilian shape to it. I'm not going to deny that that's possibly what it could be, just so it doesn't sound like I'm trying to explain this away by science, whereas it could in fact be shape-shifting. But I just happen to say that my opinion is that's not what it is. What I think is happening is, again, there's some sort of anomaly with the pupil itself, because you see this is the raw file right out of the camera, and I'm not sure how well this is going to show up on YouTube, because that's going to affect what you're seeing as opposed to what I'm seeing. But I looked at the original file, and you really can see that anomalous shape. I mean, that looks like, I would say that looks like a beast pupil that's shape-shifting. And I wonder if that's, could that be what it is? I mean, sorry about the focus. Could that actually be what we're seeing with this? Like I said, I think that there's something about the pupil itself, because it shoots energy out of the eye, and energy affects because what you're seeing right now with this image is the light photons coming from the subject or everything that you're seeing into the optic sensor. So it may be, and we'll see here, take this footage apart too and see if you want to go ahead and do that and see. But I think that what might be happening, if it's not demonic possession and or possible latent reptilian DNA shape-shifting, and we shouldn't be close-minded. Could be what it is. Like I said, I don't know. At this point, I really don't know. But what I think, my current theory is that the energy that actually is coming out of the eye may affect the waves that are hitting the optic sensor. And so as the optic sensor is looking at it, you're getting this smudge effect. Because otherwise, why are you getting this strange anomalous shape here? I mean, that really looks like, I'm just going through it again, so see it lessens now, and you don't have that triangular shape, that wedge shape. But it still has, you see, I can see why someone would think that that's shape-shifting. But I think what we have to do is, we really need more analysis. I think that this is a very difficult area of study, because, for instance, if we took a regular camera and shot my eyes in that situation without using, because a regular, like for instance, if I use my 12 megapixel Nikon, it's chances are I'll bet that you wouldn't get those as much of those anomalous shapes. Because I think what you're seeing is a combination of the eye energy and or causing a waveform distortion plus the interpolation. And then when it as you saw, somebody uploaded a thing with my eyes looking like a reptilian. The YouTube adds even more to the compression, and then you really get this like a sharpened form that really looks like a beast shape-shifting, reptilian or feline or whatever. But one thing I can say to you is that if I were to discover it, as bad as it looks, because I've done all this and I'm committed to the truth, I wouldn't cover it up. I mean, I wouldn't be too happy about it, having to admit that I'm a beast, because frankly my opinion so far of them isn't too high. But on the other hand, as I said, I am not to judge, because what God's word says is that God preserves both man and beast, and beasts are even beast seed is even sown into the royal house of the Jews. So beasts are part of the human family, as it were. I mean, if they're sown into the royal house, they are part of the family of God, because if God preserves them, that means that they must be believing Christians that have heard the story of how Jesus Christ died on the cross and was raised the third day, and that this was God's way of saving everyone who wanted to be saved into heaven. And they believe in that story, and they have continued to believe in it, and have dealt truly in the covenant, that is, haven't knowingly sinned, and have continued in a true fashion, maintaining their faith up until the moment of salvation. Otherwise, they could not be sown into the house of Judah and the house of Israel, as the scripture says. So there's some other issues that I wanted to cover with this, because one of the things that I think is important here is to realize that this is a highly subjective, we're on the frontier of understanding what this non-human phenomena is, and in particular the study of video analysis to see if we can identify these non-humans living among us. And I think that we're going to have to, as a planet, come to terms with the fact that we have obviously multiple different types of non-humans living among us. And I believe that in particular for the reptilians or serpents, they have a vested interest in the general population not finding out. And that's what I happen to think that when it says that the serpents will eat the dust, and the Adam is made of the dust, it means that the serpents will eat man, and that God has cursed them with that, being cursed above all the beasts of the field. But also that the going on the belly is not an indication of the snake. The going on the belly means that they must live covertly. That is, they have to essentially live in secrecy, in hiding, in order to survive. And but the fact that this is now coming out means that pretty much the cat's out of the bag. I mean, people are going to know, and they're going to demand in some fashion that this become more widely understood. And as more people realize it's a credible issue that there are non-humans living among us, we don't know exactly what they are. Some people say they're aliens, other people say that they're from the earth. My reading of scripture is that they are in fact from the earth, but that they may have gone out over a period of possibly even millions, or even longer than that, billions of years, and evolved and did different things on other planets and so forth and so on, and then they came back, or were here all the time, or whatever. But that the advent of the Jews, that is from Adam 6,000 years ago until now, is a relatively recent event on the earth. And that when it says created man, it doesn't mean created humans, it means created the priest kings, the Jews. That was the beginning of man. And then, but that doesn't mean that there weren't humans before that. And I believe that there were the Palladians and a bunch of other, perhaps what the Bible refers to as fowl of heaven, and maybe they all are in fact angels that left a previous state, I don't know. But to the subject of shape-shifting video analysis, I think we have to first of all be careful, because we're all a little bit strung out and paranoid about this whole thing, because we're freaked out by it. I'm still freaked out by it. I still can't hardly believe it. I mean, I can certainly understand why people are not going to believe this right away, because it's just too outlandish. And I think also that we may have had elements of our society engineered in particular to cause us to disbelieve this and think of it as a lunacy type issue. But we're finding out that that's not the case. In fact, it's quite real and it's quite serious. So in the effort to understand this and to get the word out and to get to the bottom of what's happening, I have learned from the episode with the Elephant in the Room's films crew, with the analysis of David Icke and the rest of his guests, that a mistake that can be made is to jump to conclusions too quickly. And I don't necessarily fault myself for believing what I believe, and I even said if I was wrong, I would come forward and say I was wrong, and I think I was, especially about the eyes shape-shifting on 4 of the other guests. But and I'm still kind of on the fence with David Icke, but it could all be one of the things that I must say that I still think kind of lends some credibility to the fact that at least the current David Icke, and I think the whole time is in fact a shapeshifter, is that the reverse speech thing kind of backs it up. Where he says must seal, asshole must seal. I mean, you can hear it, and that reverse speech thing. And the fact that he's, right there he's talking about John Carpenter and his movie They Live, kind of adds credibility to the notion that he is probably in fact a shapeshifter, and that he's, he knows it now, and that, even though his whole career was uncovering it, I don't think he's going to be making more books in particular or writing that or trying to dig it up more, because I think that he was not aware until recently. And I think his brethren, serpents, may have made him aware. But again, this is all speculation. I don't know. David Icke may not be a shapeshifter. One thing, another lesson, of course, that we're taking away from this is that the downloaded footage with the compression, you have the camera compression plus the compression from YouTube, is highly suspect. As I said, most of the work, 99% of everything else that I've done, and all the other shape-shifting events that I have cataloged pretty much, are high-def camera against high-def LCD or LED display. And so definitely the web downloaded footage and web footage is going to be more subject to the compression and camera errors. The second thing I would also say is that eye shape-shifting, pupil shape-shifting, is definitely more subject to error. So we should, we can separate that in some respects to other types of shape-shifting, other types of, hands and claws, skin cratering, discoloration, those types of elements. So we need to be as rational and scientific about this as we can. Don't jump to conclusions too fast, and keep an open mind to being wrong. Be able to admit when you're wrong, and be as clear as we can about this, because otherwise we're just it looks like already is I'm surprised that we even have these guys with Elephant in the Room Films making a serious movie about this, because it just seems like there's so few really credible, competent people addressing this. But I think as more and more people, as I said, that one of the the uses of uploading reptilian shape-shifting footage is that as more of this becomes prevalent on the web, and people, even though most people are going to dismiss it and say it's lunacy, whatever, but as more of it comes, then more and more people who might also be credible contributors to a science of understanding this, especially the video analysis to identify it, are gonna happen upon this, and are going to see, and are going to start uploading things, and are going to start maybe addressing this even as a investigative career. And eventually, who knows? Or maybe not, because one of the things that I was thinking was that if God has given this curse, we all got cursed, humans and beasts got cursed from the moment that Adam transgressed with Eve in the Garden of Eden, eating the fruit that he told him not to eat. Both the ground and man and the serpents and other beasts were cursed from that moment on. So we're all victims of that. But it may be that because God has given the serpents to eat man, as it were, then and has to go on his belly. And I also read something which seems to indicate that that will continue for the next 1,000 years on the earth, that that God will not give this to a situation to where we can, it's going to be solidly identified, and they're going to have some scientific way of doing this, and so they'll, the beasts will continue to live among us essentially covertly. Man will not be able to understand it or believe it, whatever. I think that the Jews, with especially those that with eternal life, they're going to know, they're going to understand this. But the rest of the world may not, and that's how the beasts survive, especially the serpents who have to eat people in order to survive. They will be able to continue as they have been. But I guess we'll see. But in the meantime, because this is, as many people know, this is a pretty serious issue. If they're eating children, and if you had, missing loved ones, or you happen to think that your child might have been a victim of these beasts eating them, as I said, there would be no doubt about what you have to do about it. We have to try to get to the bottom of this. So, I would say that people are at least going to try. Whether they'll succeed or not, it's anyone's guess, but God knows. See? Right overhead.
Look at your reflection in the mirror. You're creature of the night, Michael. Just like out of a comic book.